Past that, there's really only 3 major ways that you can modify your Minecraft to increase your luck. You can do it with a data pack, you can do it with a mod, and you can do it by editing your version's jar file. Shortly after my stream ended the day that I had my good run, I actually uploaded my world file to Google Drive, almost immediately. You can see when it was uploaded, and you can see when any of the files within it were edited. This is all in the metadata of the file. This folder contains the data packs folder and also contains the startup logs that show what mods are loaded. Within the data packs folder, you can confirm that there's no data packs and that no data packs were deleted because it was not modified after the world was created. You can also see in the startup logs that the only 2 mods loaded were allowed mods and that there were no custom mods loaded. I don't expect you to trust me on this blindly, so I actually put the link and a tutorial to download it and how to see it for yourself in the description. On top of that, I was also able to upload my jar file that has been untouched, both with modification dates showing that they were not changed or deleted after the run. Now, the mods never asked me for this file, so I only uploaded it recently, but the modification dates are still there. With this, it can be shown that I almost definitely did not modify the game in any of the ways that were speculated. Although of course it's never impossible and you can always find a way to do something if you want to, the most obvious ways to do this were those. So the first thing that I want to say before going into more specific subjects is to please not send hate to anyone involved. I already apologized on Twitter because I had said some rude things to the mods after the video was released, and I really don't want to send hate to anybody. I responded incredibly immaturely at first because I was angry, and I really do regret my response, but I would think that the average person being falsely publicly accused might react in a similar way. I don't know. I'm very competitive, so being called a cheater just really set me off at first. But now that that's out of the way, in the video, they used the logs that I mentioned before to show that I had Fabric API loaded, but they didn't mention that it showed that nothing else was loaded. They also alluded to the fact that I'm suspicious because I used Fabric, a mod loader. But Fabric is used by more than half of all of the top runners on the leaderboard. And actually, I would have much preferred using Optifine, where you can't use mods. And I did, until they banned Optifine from speedruns and told people to use Fabric instead. So I switched to Fabric because I had to, and then I was called suspicious because of it. And you can actually tell that I would have preferred to stay on Optifine because I ran 1.15 live shortly after these runs, where you can actually use Optifine, and I was using Optifine, not Fabric. Matter of fact, in one of those 1.15 runs during that stream, I almost broke the world record on a version that doesn't have piglin trades and also on a client that doesn't have an option to add mods. So I don't think that the way this was phrased in the video is a fair way to put it. But another thing is that GeoSquare said in the video that Fabric API was a mod creation tool.
The Fabric API, a mod creation tool.
Which is just extremely misleading. It's a required mod for almost every single mod in Fabric. So much so that a lot of people think that you need it for every mod. And I was actually asked by the mods if I thought that. But they didn't mention that in the video. And yet again, they use this to make me look suspicious. He also uses the logs and shows them on screen as proof that I had Fabric API loaded. But again, he doesn't mention that it doesn't show any other mods loaded. And that's called cherry picking. Using the facts that support your claim as evidence, but ignoring any facts that go against your claim. If they were being completely fair, he should have presented the fact that this log showed that there was no other mods, but it would weaken their argument, so they didn't mention it. And this is a recurring theme throughout the video. He says a lot of things that might be partially true, but says them in a very misleading way that would make a reasonable person think that I look guilty. I'm sure there's a chance that one of you or your friends saw that video and went, wow, Dream deleted evidence because he's guilty. And that's my biggest problem with the way that they handled this. I don't blame them that much because they're a team of volunteers, mostly consisted of young people, and everybody is bound to make mistakes, especially when you're younger, including me. But when you're calling into question someone's character, you really have to be careful what you say. The official owners and admins of speedrun.com, which run the leaderboard, made a statement that the video was, quote, lacking in the level of objectivity we hope to see around communications by the game moderation team to the community, which I completely agree with. I wish that the mods would have remained more neutral and just presented the facts because that's their job as moderators. And I just want to say here that at this point, I don't care if my run is verified and I'm not resubmitting or appealing the fact that it wasn't. As much as I may disagree with it, I've never really cared too much about leaderboards, and I wasn't even planning on submitting any 1.16 runs because I was just playing for practice and for fun. I mean, I was streaming on my Twitch, and that's why I didn't upload any 1.16 runs to my YouTube channel. Regardless of the fact that the 7.5 trillion odds are incorrect, I still had a very lucky streak, something you probably wouldn't expect to see in a small community like speedrunning. You would expect to see it in Minecraft overall, but it's much less likely to happen during a speedrun. So for that reason, I understand completely why the mods were skeptical, and I respect their decision not to verify the run. I'm upset that the video was made and how it was made, and that there's a lot of people that will probably believe that I cheated and never get to see this video countering it, but I don't believe that the mods were being intentionally malicious. I believe that the reason this was handled poorly can just be attributed to the fact that I have a huge channel and they're not used to dealing with that, so they obviously did quite a few things differently than they usually would. Now that I've pretty much talked about proving every possible way that I can about about why I didn't cheat. I want to talk about something a little bit more serious, which is just related to bias. And again, even though I'm expressing this, I don't want to send any hate to anybody. And I believe that the mod team is full of very respectable, honest people. But I made some claims early on that I felt targeted and that I thought that the mod team was biased. And a lot of people were upset with that because they couldn't see how they could be biased. I just want to share my point of view because from my perspective, maybe you can understand why I reacted the way that I did. First of all, the speedrun.com Minecraft Bedrock Edition team, which is a similar team to the one who worked on this, but for Bedrock Edition, completely banned me from ever submitting an official run well before this happened, without giving a single reason why. Other than that, they don't like me. And I have never even played Minecraft Bedrock Edition or done a single speedrun on that game. But I'm still banned, and I have yet to be told why. Obviously, this didn't give me as much confidence in their sister team, Java Edition, giving me fair treatment. However, I don't think that the actions of the Bedrock team reflect on the intentions of the Java team. Another thing though is that while the mods were looking into my 1.16 run, a lot of the official speedrun verifiers were saying incredibly disrespectful things about me, about my fans, and essentially harassing me, which obviously led to me saying some things that I regret saying, but I'm sure that anyone can understand why that would be frustrating. Before all this, I tried to be extremely friendly with the mod team and I helped them catch many cheaters. There was actually a point a few months ago where I was in a call with a bunch of them doing basically a PowerPoint presentation with proof that the world loading screen can prove one of the top runs is fake, and that run ended up getting unverified because of it. So I'm definitely no opponent to getting rid of cheaters from the leaderboards, and I do my best to help where I can. But during the investigation, I had my doubts about the way that the investigation was being done. And I was really stressed about it because I was almost completely left in the dark and I didn't know what was happening. And everything that I did here didn't really make me feel super optimistic about them doing a good job. One of the mods, who asked me not to name them, frequently said things that led to me having doubts about the investigation. Quote, everyone was still discussing whether the decision was right 10 minutes before the video was published. And also, quote, they were just yelling at each other to finish faster. That same mod told me after the results were released, quote, for the record, I don't believe at all that you cheated, and also, quote, I'm probably going to be quitting the mod team because of this. There are only about 10 or so active moderators that were involved in the investigation as far as I'm aware, and this was one of them. And I'm sure that anyone could understand why it would be reasonable to doubt the decision if I'm being told this by one of the moderators. I really worried about what was going on behind the scenes because of this, and this occupied most of my stress. And this isn't really important to the math, but it's definitely important to how the math is interpreted. If the mod team was biased against me, they would be more likely to make mistakes against me, like misquoting me or using incorrect formulas, because the small details wouldn't matter as much to them, even if they wouldn't do it on purpose, which I'm sure they wouldn't. As much as that sucks for me, and I wish that some members in the speedrun community looked at me differently, it is what it is. Before this whole thing went down, I had a lot of respect for the mod team, and I really hope that even though I'm not happy right now, I can regain all of that respect for them, and I hope that the same goes for me, because I said some dumb things too, because the community is an amazing place, and like I said, it's not like they're intentionally trying to sabotage my career or something. I mean, they didn't ban me or remove any of my other runs or do anything super unreasonable out of bias like the Bedrock mod team did. I think if they had removed my other runs or banned me, that would have been very biased, but I don't think that what they actually did was biased. And like I said, I do believe that they tried to do their best to come to a fair decision. After reading the document myself, I was surprised and it seemed like a very good job. The only reason I was insistent on the math being wrong is because I know that I didn't cheat. And I also know that 7.5 trillion is just too unlikely to be reasonable if I didn't cheat. So I could assume that the math was off. Again, I don't care at all about my speedrun. I care more about defending my character than defending a dumb leader.